T-minus 10 minutes and counting.
Somebody that's already dead. How are we going to kill somebody that's already dead? It's because of men like you that all must be destroyed. It's because of men like you that all must be destroyed. At least not by anyone who still remains alive.
our brain treatment was given to you. You are a robot, that's all you are.
10,
Better not change your mind. You just better not.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, hi! It's time for Tangents, your bi-weekly show about whatever it is that we scrounge up on the internet to report back to you and give the opinions that you feel matter more than anything else in the world.
Facts.
That's nothing but bullshit right there. So, yeah. I'm Andrew. I'm here in beautiful sunny Cleveland, Ohio. It's good to see that all the bots are on. And it looks like there is a bot pretending to be a human named BotBert420 on there, too. Thanks for joining us. We are broadcasting live on Twitch, on Facebook, and, of course, on YouTube as well. And it's very exciting to have you all here today. With me, of course, are my beloved co-hosts, Das Christoph, Jeff, and Justin. So, Christoph, what's new in your world?
Hello, Andrew.
Hi.
You forgot to let me out last time, and I've been stuck in here for the last 2 weeks.
But you got your hair dyed.
Yeah,
And you look...
but there's no bathroom in here.
So would you...
I need to send paper towels.
No, you don't get the paper towels. No. Just remember, paper towels are a privilege, not a right.
Let me out, Andrew.
I don't hate God, man.
Justin knows where it's at.
No, I know, but yeah, I've just been streaming. I haven't had anything exciting that happened the last 2 weeks. I did a bunch of streams. I streamed for a couple festivals. I did 2 coast to coast. I did one in Salt Lake City, Spy Club every Thursday, and I'm DJing a birthday party on Friday this week. Alex Assembly, and I'm doing Spy Club tomorrow. But outside of that,
Excellent.
That's it.
Yep. Alex Assimilates Bot is on here as well. Hi, Alex Assimilate Bot.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
and I got the Cherry Audio Voltage Modular and the Juno from that Humble Bundle.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I got the Humble Bundle, and that's all Windows only.
I support it. Wait.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah,
Son of a
contacted him
bitch.
like, hey, you got Mac installs? We're like, nope. And I'm like, all right, cool. So maybe next week I'll give those codes away.
Wait, don't they have Mac versions?
I think
of
what I
those,
can do is
though?
I can just pop up, like, open the executables and then just get the VSTAs out of them and dump them over to the Mac. It's not a big deal. But maybe I'll give them away anyway because
really?
it might feel nice.
Are DLLs binary compatible?
No. I'll figure it out.
So then,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I think that they're. I want to say that they make Mac versions of those, so maybe you can get them. You can explain to Cherry Audio and
Possibly.
get them. I'm going to take a look
All
right now.
While you're doing that, Jeff, you're in a different place this week.
I am in a different place this week. I am on vacation. It's cool. I am normally in Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. I am now in beautiful Lambertville, New Jersey, which is not that anybody knows where that is, except for the people in Lambertville, which is just across the river from New Hope, Pennsylvania. So we came up here, my wife and my 3 kids. We came up for the week. So we're hanging out here. We went to a castle today. That was pretty cool. You wearing the Deluge shirt. That was the only piece of music gear that I brought with me. And so I've been hanging out outside, making some music and enjoying
Excellent.
the outdoors. That's what we've been
Vacations
up
are
to.
wonderful things. I can't wait to have one day. Whenever Christoph lets me out.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, and you got to get on a boat.
No.
So I looked it up. There are Mac versions of those softwares. Your license should work. So try downloading it direct from Cherry Audio and then use your license code and see if
All
that
right,
activates.
thanks for looking that up. I appreciate it. Well, cool, Jeff.
So now
No.
you'll let me out?
I will send you a paper towel, though.
All right.
The one.
Just the one
Just the
square.
one square.
Use it wisely.
Wisely, indeed. Justin, what's new and exciting in your world?
Well, musically, not too much. A lot of other life stuff going on. I bought a car,
Congratulations.
which is
That's
terrible.
what you need in downtown Chicago.
Nice.
Yeah, it is right now anyway. But yeah, I plan on taking some road trips. So, well, 2 actually. It's not a lot.
Where are we going? Anywhere fun?
Yeah, so I'm going to see you for a start.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should schedule it around a tangent so we can like cuddle and make Jeff and Christoph
nice.
jealous that they're not cuddling with us.
Oh, I'm
You can come
def-
over to my house too. It's right next door to Cleveland in Virginia.
Now, I used to drive like 6 hours from Cleveland to see you. So, but you know, hey man, things have changed. A lot of things have changed.
Tectonics, for
No.
instance.
Yeah. So I'm working on still
Cool.
mixing stuff. Finally got a set a date for mastering.
Nice,
but,
nice.
No, it's like the worst. It's the longest I've ever spent on something. It's terrible. Yeah. So musically, yeah, not a whole lot of other new stuff going on. I'm even like hard pressed to think of anything. But just hanging in there.
There you go. It's all you can do sometimes. Well, very
Indeed.
cool. Let's see. I'm going to be on Synthstrom TV on the 19th. Yep,
Nice.
they're doing the Golden Shrimp Guild, who are awesome people, and they'll pop up at some point in the list here, so the bots can follow them. We contacted the guys over at Synthstrom, and there's enough of us that use deluges, and they're like, "Why don't you do a showcase kind of thing?" So. Yeah,
That is
so
great.
I recorded it when I was out in California on Pacifica Beach using the ocean as an oscillator, like one does, and running it through the filters and stuff like that while my girlfriend was reciting poetry into it. So it's kind of cool. Yeah,
cool.
so that's what's up. That's what I did musically, and yeah.
You're living some real art decade life right there. I love that.
Yeah, we'll go with that, right? I know it feels like that. I'm like, yeah, an artistic lifestyle.
Your life should be a track on Bowie
right.
Low, I think.
It's that adventurous. Yeah, and probably starting up doing Synthfest again next week, or next month rather, because I haven't done that in a few months, and that's always a good time. Synthfest, the monthly synthesizer raid train on Twitch. It's a blast.
And you normally do 2 hours.
Yeah,
on
we
that,
should do
right?
we usually do 2 hours. And then but the Synthfest is usually like 3 days. I know we've done like a 5-day one before. I think that was for 303 Day. That was your favorite day, Christoph.
You did it at 7 a.m.
Yeah. I'm not going to do the 7 a.m. ones. I finally figured out what time the Netherlands, what time zone they use, and it's not the same time zone I do. So I figured that out now.
Weird.
Yeah. For the longest
Yeah.
time, I was like, why do I keep on getting like 7 a.m. shifts? And then someone's like, well, we were scheduling this based on the Netherlands time. And I'm like, oh, that's why. So it's 1 p.m. your time, but it's 7 a.m. my time. So I was making a joke out of it by making breakfast for one stream while I was playing music, and I just like ended up having like a pound of bacon sitting in front of me, and like I drink, and every time I took a sip of coffee, I'd turn up the tempo a little bit more, and so by the time it was done, it was like at 200 BPM. It started like 87, and, and there was like a pound of bacon, and I'm like, I can't eat all this bacon. Oh well, and I ate all the bacon. So
Your deluge is covered with bacon grease.
yeah, everything. Well, I was using the Electron gear for that one, so the Octatrack was a little bit slippery, as it is wont to be. So we've got all kinds of news because things happen in the world over 2-week periods, and we should probably hit this shit like whatever something gets hit with. And I'm really not good at that.
No, that was up there with the Blackadder sort of.
Yeah.
what is it? Death and pestilence stalk the land like two giant stalking things.
Exactly. So first off on our list of news items is Isotope over on Sweetwater has a hell of a deal with 97% off their bundle of it's called the Community Appreciation Bundle. It's the Element Suite, Trash 2, Stutter Edit 2, Break Tweaker, Excalibur R2, Phoenix Verb, and Iris 2. It's usually $1,610. It's going for $49.
This is sick.
It is.
Like,
There's no reason not to get it.
No, this is sick.
It's a really
just
good
Stutter
deal.
Edit too. If is worth shit more than $50.
I know, especially if you're a fan of BT.
Which is worth more than $50.
Stutter Edit 2.
Yeah. That seems like it. Like it's such a laborious task to do manually.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount that it saves you to do those kind of effects, it's instant. Yeah, instant value.
You know what's really weird is those guys, not to tangent too much, but they just finally updated the vinyl plugin.
Yeah.
And I noticed that because I'm using their like suite, everyone's got a install suite now. But yeah, I was like, what the hell? You haven't updated this in like 8 years. Like, cool.
Yeah, I used the crap out of that back in the day.
I know.
Is it better or does it just look different? Like, did they change the engine or did they just change the UI?
So I have to plead ignorance. I haven't actually used it for anything.
Fair enough.
But I was just shocked and surprised that they did. Yeah. The UI wasn't terrible.
No.
So I don't know why they would have done that, but who knows?
It was very usable.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I still use and abuse the vinyl on my SP404.
Oh, yeah.
It's the right kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that this vinyl was in that kind of league, like if you're a lo-fi person, but I do think that it had great utility for some things.
Yeah. It's very crackly.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you can adjust the crackle, which is really
I like
good.
that you could.
Yeah.
I like that you had the buzz too. Sometimes I would just turn that up and then I would run it through Stutter Edit and then make it do because
nice.
stuttery line noise is kind of a fun trick to play with people's ears a little bit because they're like, "What's that? No, that's line noise," and then it starts becoming part of the song, and then they're like, "Oh,
For those of
you're
us
clever."
Who are old enough or hipster enough to use phono turntables will recognize that sound right away.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
No such thing as a perfect ground on an old turntable, man.
truth. Barely any good at all. So yeah, that's good. That's a hell of a deal. Like $50.
It is.
Get that shit going. Go buy it. Won't regret it. All of you out there in Botland. So yeah, next piece of news. Fuck yeah, KnobCon and Superbooth. Both are now open for registration. KnobCon being the super duper synthesizer convention in beautiful Schaumburg, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, that they had to cancel last year. It's $50 for the entire weekend. The hotel's like $100 a night that the convention's at. They're working on making sure that everybody's safe and everything like that. So that's cool. And yeah. Justin and I are both KnobCon veterans, and it's always a great
Absolutely.
time. It's a blast and slightly overwhelming. Usually by Sunday, my ears are bleeding. But yeah, Suit and Tie Guy runs the whole show, and he's awesome. And seeing all the people performing and noodling with the gear and hanging out with people and chit-chatting and, meeting folks and stuff like that. I had like a great conversation one year with Roger Lynn, and he swears like a sailor and he talks like a Light FM DJ, and I love that.
Yeah. No, I do think it's a good chance. Yeah, because I remember right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good way to talk to vendors because compared to MoFest or something, where you don't really see, that same type of environment. There's like select vendors. You know what I mean? I really felt like KnobCon, it's much more relaxed sort of atmosphere in some ways.
And the vendors are kind of excited to be there. Like they're looking at everything else that's there too, and they're showing up to like the the shows and everything like that, and getting drinks with folks and stuff like that. So it's kind of it's kind of nice. from that standpoint. And I mean, we've gotten to know like Enrique from Novation and Mario from Electron really, really well from just hanging out with them at NobCon and stuff like that.
I had a surreal experience there last time. You know Corey. So I saw Corey, who I'm a fan of totally, because obviously I'm an NPC guy and I've watched his stuff for a long time. He used to be on Sonic Stage. I think he is occasionally, but I was there. He was hanging out with that guy Moot Booksley. Yep. I got up to do something, and I'm like, all of a sudden those two are hanging out, and they're like in line to get into the showroom. And I'm like, it's Corey and Moot Booksley.
I remember that.
Matt Boxley, Michael. I don't know how to say his name, but I was like,
and plus it's always fun to make fun of Mark Doty.
It is. It really is.
I mean, the jokes almost write themselves for that guy. I can say that because.
So what is? I haven't ever been to NobCon. So is it sort of like a combo vendor meet and greet plus performance
so
event?
it's really it's extremely laid back kind of thing. So there's like performances at night, but they're like the first one is in a tent. And like all the people are just like suit and tie guys playing, and just like, you know, like some YouTube guys, and it's just like some dudes, whatever. And all the gear is set up in a circle facing outward, and the crowd just kind of walks around it while they're playing. And they got like, you know, it's just like this really like, it's a really laid back kind of chill kind of thing. And then they got like vendors, and they got all the latest, all the new gear and stuff like that. Like, you know, what was it? The Argon 8 was premiered at the last one, and so was the Hydra synth and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a big deal as far as that kind of thing is concerned. And
it's a big showroom.
Yeah, it's a huge showroom.
A lot of vendors.
I wouldn't even say like vendors, because not many people are actually selling anything, right? There's a couple stores set up, but a lot of the time it's just interacting with the gear, and then they have like classes. Like, Novation will talk about the latest of what they're up to and that kind of stuff. And then you'll have like John Sonnenberg talking about his new method of synthesis using, I don't even know what, like trigonometry or something like that. So it gets pretty heady. There's a couple like small DIY modular classes and stuff like that. But it's mostly just like hanging out with a bunch of fellow synthesizer geeks and nerding out about what you love.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's how I met with like the Golden Shrimp guys and everything like that, was from NobCon.
You're technically right, because I think only my friend Andrew here in Chicago, who runs a synth store out of another music store. I forget what they're called off the top of my head, but yeah, they were the only vendor selling stuff. But they had some used stuff and some new stuff, which is cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out their name because I'm an idiot. He's gonna kill me.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
I imagine there's some appeal for some of the legendary synth designers that go, like Roger Lynn or Tom Oberheim or Dave Smith, because, when they go to these things, they walk in as synth gods,
right?
And then when they leave, they're people no one else gives a crap about. So it's got to be kind of nice, like, yeah, I did all these things, because their family doesn't give them any respect, and no one they know does, and everyone else just treats them like crap. But all of a sudden, their nerdiness and the things they've accomplished are suddenly appreciated, and they get this worship they're not going to get anywhere else in life. That's kind of nice.
Well, it's like Roger Lynn was just running his own booth. He was the only person that worked it for the Linstrument. So he's just sitting there, just like hanging out.
Tom Oberheim work in his own booth, and he's Tom Oberheim.
And then like the guy, what's his name?
But everybody else, he's that guy's trying to get
that
by.
Old dude, money. And then what's the name of the guy? I can't remember. Justin, who built the Hydrosynth. Glenn Darcy. Yeah, he was running the booth, and it's Glenn Darcy, this guy who designs amazing synthesizers, and he's a legend in that world. And he's like, hey, that's here I am,
Yeah, and he's actually a real, I think, shy, mellow guy, man. And I think Dominic was the other guy.
Yeah, Dominic from over at Spectrasonics.
No, Dominic from Hong Kong. I think his name. He's the other guy
programmer.
in. Yeah. Super cool guy. They gave me a T-shirt, which was nice. Well, it's because I told him I already pre-ordered it.
Yeah.
But I had. So I wasn't lying.
Just to get a goddamn free T-shirt.
It's a good line to have in your back pocket.
I know, right?
You just say, I already pre-ordered that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the T-shirt too.
Yeah. I remember giving the modal people shit about the the colors on their synth. This was before they changed it. It was not the final synth, but I'm like, you can't read this thing.
Yellow and orange?
No, it was gray and had slightly lighter gray text on it. So
Really?
it was like completely unreadable, and I'm like, you can't read this at all in normal lighting. I can't imagine what it's like in bad lighting. Oh, the Cobalt 8, that's what it was.
All black light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm getting to that point where even my bifocal correction, I still can't read some of that real small shit. Like
at that point, it's not worth reading it, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just twist the knob.
Just twist a knob or just park wherever that is. I don't know.
There's a whole market out there for easy reader
Mm-hmm.
synthesizer faces. This is like it's the synth version of like when when you have to turn your iPhone up to put it like 100, like the large text, 150% size text or whatever. It's just synths with 150% size, or the Jitterbug phone.
Yep.
I want Jitterbug to make a synth.
I want Jitterbug to make an interface for the Deluge.
I just figured it out. So Eurorack is the most popular modular format, but Look Mom No Computer, he's going to take over because he makes these huge modules custom built.
Yeah, he does.
And they're big enough that we can read.
Yeah, it's true. We can't read his fucking handwriting, but I mean, that's big enough to read.
Yeah. I mean, it's just squiggles and garbage, but
Yeah,
I can see it.
I
Somebody
can totally tell it's squiggles and garbage. So yeah, I will be at KnobCon this year if as long as like the world doesn't descend back into hell. I'll be there. I already got my tickets. It is September 10th, the weekend of. And that's going on to September 10th through September 12th in Schaumburg, which is like right next to. I mean, it's right next to O'Hare, so it's very easy to get to from the airport and everything. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. I know that our other label mate for X Studios, Information Tray, John, will be there as well. This will be his first time going.
Oh, cool.
He got the clearance to go, so he'll be there too. So maybe we'll see some bots there. So that'll be cool. And then the other.
All right, it's so sorry. The place is called Synth City. It's inside of Rock and Roll Vintage Guitar Shop in Chicago. If you happen to be.
In beautiful Chicago.
Sorry,
that's okay. Good plug. Now ask them to sponsor us.
Yeah, the place is cool actually. Lots of stuff in stock, which is unusual. Like you're not going to find that.
You'll have to take me there when I go out there in October to see Dead Can Dance and Gary Newman.
It's on Damon. There's a great. Well, I don't know how you're going to do this, but there's a great tamale place over there. I'll take you.
I can have a cheat day once in a while.
Yeah.
The other big con is, of course, Super Booth, returning to the Berlin's Fez. That's going on September 15th to 18th. This will be interesting to see how the vendors are going to be going between KnobCon and Super Booth, because those are both pretty big synth conventions.
Well, according to Jeff's geographical modification system.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So that's like right down the street from each other. Berlin and Chicago.
I think Jeff has figured out how to fold space. And
right.
Sure.
Are you drinking spice this week?
No.
Go through the tubes.
Yeah, right.
Who would do that?
Urine and feces are processed through the thigh pads.
In a former life, I used to do a lot of events, and my guess is that so I used to do things that were in the U.S. and then hop directly over to Europe for things, and I found it is something like impossible to try to take most of your stuff. So you basically wind up carrying what you can carry by hand with you when you go, and then you wind up having to pay a sort of like a double situation where you have two booths basically. So you wind up contracted with somebody over in Europe to get it done. It's not exactly the most exciting from a cost efficiency standpoint, but you can, one of the things that you can kind of read into is that the companies that show up at both are legitimately committed to community and to the communities that they serve. It sort of is that is kind of a litmus test for who's really going above and beyond in some of those places. Or, is the did you actually do it in the U.S. and in Europe in this time where it meant that you needed to invest heavily enough that you actually had two separate
Right.
setups for people rather than just picking.
Here's the thing about this, though, and I'm wondering if they're not going to be getting as many people out as far as like vendors and stuff like that, because they're being ridiculously particular about who can go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reading it here right now. They're like, first of all, no tickets will be available on site. You got to only get them in advance. Each individual ticket is personalized and valid for the specific day. Access to the event will only be granted with one of the following official proofs: a complete and EU-approved COVID-19 vaccination at least 2 weeks before the respective event day, a medical certificate of a recovered COVID-19 infection within the last 6 months before the respective event day, or an officially recognized negative rapid test. Okay, so I'm able to get through that. But a lot of the European Union is closed to Americans.
Yeah, and depending on how you fly in, so if you wind up in a situation where you can't do a direct flight, and you might wind up having to quarantine yourself for 2 weeks on either end of it. So it's like, hey guys, it's cool. It's only 4 weeks to go for a 3-day event.
Yeah, right. So that'll be. So I'm wondering if, and granted, a lot of synth companies and stuff like that, especially the European ones, they have, they obviously have reps in America and they have reps in Europe, and I think they'll be able to get around. Like Electron, I'm sure will be fine. They're not going to send Mario out there or something like that. But yeah, so that's my thought on that. At least I don't know. It'll be cool to see. And I'm kind of glad, that things are opening up. I hope we don't have like a super spreader event because of synthesizers and stuff. But I mean, I got my vaccination.
It'll be worth it.
Mm-hmm. I think so. So everyone should go to NobCon. That's here, and everyone in Europe should go to Super Booth. One year I'll go to Super Booth. That'll be fun.
That would be very fun, actually.
Me and Bo Beats will hang out.
Bo Beats. You and Bob Eats.
Me and Bob Eats. I love Bo.
Bo's taking a break,
Yes,
right?
he is. Yeah, he's taking a summer break. He needs it. He's been doing a lot. So, more gear news. The Invader 2 no-nonsense polyphonic virtual synthesizer. Jeff, you found this little thing.
Yeah, it's very funny because so many of the synthesizer VSTs or hardware that you see are trying to sort of be either really cutting edge and they're trying to do all of these new things, or they're trying to just clone something that exists already. This one, I don't know. When I read the specs on it, something about it was very funny to me. It was like, I used to drive a Volkswagen Passat, and I described the Passat as being sort of the exact definition of like, what is a car? Like, it has chairs in it and some wheels, and it's got a radio if you want to listen to that, and then it's got a steering wheel that you drive it and pedals to make it go.
Right.
And that's the Passat. And this thing is sort of like that of synthesizers, and it struck me as very funny. It sounds very good, but it has all of the features that a synthesizer has. It has oscillators and filters, and it has envelopes, and it's got an amplifier, and it does all of the things that synthesizers do. And their descriptions of it just really very I don't think that this is intentional at all. It just struck me as very funny that here's a company that's come out and they're like, here's a synthesizer, this one makes noise for you, and it makes very good noise, but it is for sure just a synthesizer. It is radically adequate.
Like this says, there are no fancy waveform jiggery pokery or matrix modulation shenanigans.
No. Here is a synthesizer. Do you want to make synthesizer noises, person? Well, guess what? Have we got for you one synthesizer? Here it is. Please install and make noise.
Have fun. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the TV salesman from The Simpsons, where it's like, yeah, and the TV's got plastic casing to prevent fall apart.
Yes. But all that being sort of like set aside to it, I do actually think that there's especially for people, not that any of these people would be watching us, but hey, if you're just sort of like learning how synthesis works, there is a monster value in synthesizers like this, because I think what's the gold standard people talk about is like sort of learning synthesis through modular, but fuck that. That's nonsense. Cables are for crazy people. and so having a fully integrated synthesizer like this that has a very sort of logical, coherent signal flow that really makes sense as a sort of base building block.
And a very simple interface.
Yeah.
So it's not as daunting.
And it's a good interface.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very clean. It looked really nice. I was really impressed by some of the samples that have been put together. I mean, they were well composed as well as just good sounding. But it seems like a good sounding synth, and it's the right price too.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, exactly. It's pay what you want, as little as nothing, as much as you want to. Throw in $5 and get that little synth. I mean, who doesn't need more basic synths in their lives?
I don't see any basic sense. Well, wait, I can't see it. What's that? Is that a Prophet?
This? Yeah, it's a Prophet 6.
That's not got too much jiggery.
There's not much jiggery pokery. Just a little bit of jiggery, a little bit of pokery. And like the MS-2000, there's not too much jiggery pokery there.
But I think what it's got going for it is the beautiful oscillators and the WYSIWYG interface. Just love it.
Yeah, and really that's kind of the thing, isn't it? Like, especially if you're learning how to use this stuff, being able to look at it and being like, oh, that does this, that does that. Okay, I understand this. Yep. I think it's a get it. If you don't have it. If you already have it, enjoy it. So Cherry Audio, our good friends at Cherry Audio, I like the fact that they always make sure that when we're done talking about Cherry Audio, they put new stuff out so we can talk about Cherry Audio again. I'm wondering if any of these bots that are currently watching us is actually Cherry Audio in disguise.
I hope so.
Their release schedule is like daily.
It really is. It's right after our previous show, really. So thanks, guys, at Cherry Audio. Please sponsor us and send us stuff. So they just gave us 1,000 more reasons to pimp them out. And that is the fact that they have 1,000 modules available on their voltage modular platform. So this is kind of like a VCV rack kind of interface. And they have over 1,000 modules now available on it.
It's crazy.
It's a
lot of modules.
It's a fucking lot of modules.
Totally.
Yep. So it's not just them. They also have third parties, and people get excited about developing for them. And you can get an SDK, and people do develop for them, independents. But they've also released modules of some of the things that they've put out. For example, they've released, and we talked about on this show, an Oberheim 8 voice. So you can get the Oberheim SEM and use that as modules inside of your own modular rig. And lots of other things. I think they did the same thing for the DCO 106, which is their Juno 106 clone. So lots of options, and now you've got 1,000 module options.
That's a lot of module options.
That's a lot of module options.
Part of me is like, that's really cool, and part of me is like, I would be overwhelmed and not play with any of them after a while.
Well, I mean, it's that I think it's not that you're going to buy all 1,000, except for Richard Devine, who I'm sure absolutely has.
Yeah, he has.
But for everybody else, it's like, you know what? This isn't the filter I want. That's the filter I want. And they'll look through all 18 filters, and they'll know, like, nope, that one. And then they'll just have that one filter that gives them the sound that they want.
But I mean, if there's 1,000, they probably have like 100 filters.
Yeah, but some digging.
Yeah.
Or maybe somebody's made like a plates, knockoff the way Arturia did, because it's open source.
I don't know. Unless
We'll talk
Richard
about that again later.
Yeah.
Unless Richard Devine can crawl out from under his yawning pile of Timberwolves, I don't really know.
I wonder, are those videos still up on YouTube when he was talking about how awesome the Timberwolf is?
Yeah. That's the one where he's in like a room that looks like a data center, but it's probably his modular room. And he's sitting on the floor with the thing. And I'm like, you are getting paid so bad right now.
Yeah.
I literally have a picture of the back of his head, and I look at it periodically to remind me that that there is hope for humanity.
What is it with modular guys and sitting on the floor? Nobody has chairs?
Nobody has chairs.
There's no money for
Yeah,
chairs.
you're too busy buying
Yeah.
modules.
You can get
Oh,
modules.
that does make
Yeah.
sense.
All the money
They
goes to
just sell the chairs for more modules.
I mean, I have
Yeah.
I have a modular. I'm staring at my modular rig right now. It's right behind the camera, and I'm sitting in a chair. It's on a table.
Well, that's because you haven't sold all your other gear.
That's true.
And you're not sitting on the floor with your giant modular rack, where you all you do is budget for modules and pay.
Let me see if I
You
can.
don't
Let
really
me see
need
if I can do this without crashing the camera.
An aloe
Let's see.
plant.
By the way, while Andrew's showing everybody that, I just want to say, although you don't see it here, and I am standing, it's not because I have no place to sit. I could sit down if I wanted to. I can totally afford a chair.
I can say
Can't
that.
afford a chair.
Don't judge me.
I want somebody to
Yeah,
take all
sure.
1,000 modules. Oh, this is very fancy. Here's my challenge, Cherry Audio. If you'd like to sponsor this portion, I will take all of your 1,000 modules and I will figure out how to make a single patch out of all 1,000 of them at once.
Nice.
The greatest brown noise ever.
I am farting just thinking about it.
1,000 brown notes at once. The whole world will shit
You will shit themselves over
Concurrently.
your plugins.
concurrently. Yeah, and I mean, what's finer marketing
Right?
than that? Well, what happened to you, Cherry?
Yeah, cherry audio.
You got cherry.
Yeah. Oh man, my brown eye got cherried.
And we're going to run them all on a Core i3.
You can test out the M1 with it.
Yeah, probably. You can run it natively.
Well, Andrew will have to let us know if he can get his downloader and
Well,
licensing to work.
I got. This is my new M1 iPad Pro.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, does that just run apps, or can you run like OS 10 things
Right
on
now
it?
you can only run apps. I'm hoping that like they announced I like iPad OS 15 and it's not that impressive. I'm thinking that they're probably trying to, once they get all the other iPads up to M1s, then they'll probably turn it into something far crazier. I don't necessarily want to run Mac apps on this thing.
Do you have any Macs?
Do I have any Macs? Yeah. Is this a bear shit in the woods? Is a frog's ass watertight?
I don't know. Hold on now, is it?
I just know because Andrew has a Mac collection for every room. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I picked up a
Like a
frog and
lap-
it leaked on me a lot, so I don't know.
What's that?
Yeah.
I picked up a frog and it leaked on me a lot, so I don't know about a frog's butt being
Well,
tight.
One way to find out.
Yeah,
Woo.
I'm really
So what you thinking,
intrigued.
Jeff?
That's it.
How's the wine?
I have a joke, but I can't tell it on Twitch.
I will get demonetized if that happens.
Yeah, drink.
Your channel will get banned.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be unfortunate. Wine out of a box. The finest wine
boxed wine.
there is.
I know. I was all excited
You're
because you
leaky frog
actually
fingers.
put in the news section your drink from 2 weeks ago. So that will go in the show notes.
Maybe he was drinking.
I think so.
Never. I would never do that.
No.
That was a good one. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it to anybody.
We'll put it up in the.
It has some weird stuff in it, but it's worth getting the weird stuff to make
Sometimes you need weird stuff. Let's face it.
it. I mean, honestly, so this one contains a liqueur called Velvet Falernum, and anything called Velvet Falernum is worth
That
having.
sounds like a sci-fi thing. I don't think that's real.
Yeah.
It's
Isn't that what they
is.
drink on What We Do in the Shadows?
I think it's what they drink
I
in
don't
Star
know.
Trek.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It sounds like some kind of disease you get from wearing velvet underpants. I'm not really sure.
It is.
You nailed it, my friend.
Or did I?
Maybe.
Was it a silly and expert little lie?
From a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
110, 120, whatever it
Yeah,
takes.
So there's a new version of Touch OSC that finally came out. This is kind of cool. I don't know if anybody has used Touch OSC before on any of their devices, or if they're familiar with it.
I used the demo of it years ago, and it looked really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I think Daft Punk used something similar on a lot of their things called Lemur.
It's kind of like Lemur, except it's more configurable, and
Yeah.
you can use it with, at least on the Mac side, there's a program called Oscillator that you can plug it into, and then you can use that to control whatever. Oscillator is interesting into itself because you can literally plug in a joystick and tell it to control MIDI stuff, or you can plug in anything, really. You can make your mouse control stuff. But TouchOSC is basically it's a configurable virtual controller for touchpads, whatever that might be. Whatever touchpad you might have laying around. It's across the board, so it's Android, iOS, iPadOS, Linux, Mac, Windows. They make it for everybody. And with the new version of it, one of the things they did beforehand, you actually had to download an editor on the computer and then dump it onto your touchpad from there. Now it's all built in, so you can design your surfaces and stuff like that right on the iPad, or in my case, or whatever your touch device is. I used it for a couple of Missile Command concerts when we didn't have much space to set up our usual gaggle of gear. I literally just programmed out a couple of iPads I had, and we just wirelessly connected to a laptop, since all of the we were just basically using controllers anyway, using MainStage and the synths built in the Logic to do our stuff live. So instead we just had iPads, and we would just be standing around with our iPads in our hands and just playing and walking around and stuff like that when there wasn't a stage.
Cool.
It was kind of fun. And we had a microphone for the singer, whoever was singing at the moment. But it worked really well. I don't necessarily want to play like that all the time, because playing a keyboard without keys is kind of weird, because you don't know, you can't, it's easy to find a C note without looking when you're used to playing keys, but it's not when you can't feel them.
I think this would be really handy for modifying drones or creating custom controls for things. Not necessarily playing keys or notes, but anything West Coast synthesis style, or just modulating things. It could be really handy. I know other people use it just for controlling lighting rigs.
Oh yeah.
So, it's got a lot of potential.
I've used it for controlling like the mixer in a DAW. Works great.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. You could probably set up a DJ controller on there too.
Yeah, I think my friend Chris Mack used to do that.
Lighting is the place that I've seen it most used, I think.
Yeah, I can see like lighting, especially because you're not worried about things like velocity sensitivity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see like a audio visual, like a video synthesizer type stuff would be cool.
Yeah, what's that? Is it Roland that makes the one? It's like a video mixer. Roland makes, and it's got it looks like a airplane throttle.
Yeah, they made it. I don't think they make it anymore, but I know the one of which you speak.
Yeah.
Is it the hotels?
Yeah, pretty much.
Really, yeah.
You can control video and also play Flight Simulator.
What more could you ask for?
Right?
Championed by Author and Punisher.
Totally.
There you go.
Yeah.
Duct tape a couple of those to your arms.
That thing is pretty neat, but I've seen people use TouchOS to do some similar stuff. As with that, where essentially where you're mixing video and also having it essentially either be responsive to the audio or be responsive to some MIDI inputs. And I've seen some pretty interesting effects out of that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But no throttle, which is like kind of lame.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody could get on that.
Well, just get you can with Oscillator, you can literally plug in a HOTUS throttle. And you can still control stuff with it. So easy peasy.
I mean, maybe they just maybe sold a license.
Maybe. You never know.
That's it. That's
fixed it for you guys. Yeah, there's a gaggle of video synthesis editors and stuff like that at KnobCon, and they were when they were like because Justin and I played as Spooky Action at a Distance at one of the KnobCons, and then they were doing video editing and processing and shit behind us on this really nice LED screen. That was pretty cool. That was really cool. But it was kind of interesting. It was very like DIY-ish. Like there was one guy who had like a video camera pointing at a turntable that he would put objects on, and then that would go into the video synthesizer and filter and stuff. So he had like, you know, like
Oh, that's
baby doll heads or something like that, and they'd just be spinning on the camera. And so it was more interesting than than watching some of the performances. It was seeing how they were doing stuff.
There is an artist that I follow on Instagram, and I think his handle is The Noise Diary.
Mm-hmm. I know that. I think I follow him too.
And he does this really, I don't know, something about it just really works for my brain with the video synthesis that he does. So there's this, for anybody who's unfamiliar, you've seen these, I see them a lot of times as like billboards that wrap around buildings where they do a sort of a 3D effect where essentially the screen itself winds up being larger than the area that's used of the screen. And so anything that sort of breaks the borders of that winds up looking like it's extending into a 3D space. He does a lot of work with it almost looks like topographical mapping, like a real-time topographical mapping of the sound where it sort of is breaking through borders and things. And I don't know what he's actually doing with it, but I haven't looked into it deeply either, but it really, really works for me. So anybody looking for some very interesting video synthesis, that's a good one. It's The Noise Diary.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, so new Touch OSC. I think they're putting out, if you have the version 1, you can get a discount. I think they're working on putting that into the app stores right now. So, kind of handy. Studio Electronics made an update to their SE1X with the S3E3X, or as I call it, the CX. Or no, I don't really. I just made that up now. So yeah, Jeff, you found this one, yeah? Actually, I think both of us found it.
Both of you did.
Because I like the fact that they weren't calling it a beast.
Man, this thing looks great. I had an SE1, and it was great because I had the original manuals, and they used to sell it with a resistor because there was a flaw, and you had to. It's just like crazy stuff.
The original one sounded really good. This was one of the other ones that I thought was sort of unintentionally very funny to me. That, you know, here it is. What was the last one released? Like 20 years ago.
Years ago.
30 years ago.
Nearly 30.
Yeah. Just updating. Well, I guess we'll update that one now. It felt very out of left field, but the first one was super, super good, and the you know, everything that it looks like is coming out of this one is just a click or two up. So
they
should be
actually
really nice then.
Continued to manufacture the SE1 for a long time.
Yeah.
They're one of those things that they don't advertise. They're just like some dudes in LA. Because I was looking at the Omega 8, I think it was, which is insane. It's like 8 oscillators, but it's like insane, like $8,000. Like, this is like serious boutique stuff. Like, you don't just walk into this. You know, you don't just walk into the door. Because they just re-released the MIDI Mini, which was their first thing, which is they took a Mini Moog and just shoved it in a box with a MIDI kicker. And so that first one is highly sought after because it's literally a Mini Moog in a box with a MIDI conversion kit.
And that's when you couldn't get a Mini Moog, so it was a way to get a recently built Mini Moog. What was the SE1 based on? Was that based on the Memory Moog?
No, it was based on the Mini Moog. It was supposed to sound like a Mini Moog.
But then you could get cartridges for it to change the filters.
That was a different one. That's the
different one? All right.
Yeah, that was another one they made.
Is that the ATC?
Yes, I think ATC, yeah. And that one's cool too. And that one you could swap out the filters. This one on board, I think, has my SE1 wasn't the SE1X, which was much better and much more stable, which is why I sold mine, because eventually the panel electronics went belly up on it. But the thing is, like, I think it has a 12 dB filter and a 24 dB ladder filter. So you could do both, which was cool.
That's right.
The thing is with it is it was my first real analog. No, I had a Moog. I had a Moog Rogue. That was my first Moog. And when I first started comparing the oscillators and the filters, I noticed that the SE1 is a little different, to answer your question, Christoph. But it gets you in that space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sounds really thick. Like it's almost hard to fit in a mix. It's so massive.
And in the 90s, no one was really making analog
No.
synths. So it was a big deal that you could get this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dr. Dre used the hell out of this. If you listen to any of those
So
albums.
that and like the Waldorf Pulse, I think, were the two that were available.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Andromeda came out until 2000.
I think it was 2003.
Exactly. So in
Wasn't
the 90s, you just didn't have options for recently built analog.
Base Station 1, I think, right? Isn't that analog?
Yeah, the Base Station 1 was analog, and that was in the late 90s, 97, 98, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Still. No, you're so right. But yeah, this thing looks really attractive. If I had money to burn, I would totally buy this thing. I'm sure it sounds freaking amazing.
Yeah, I just pulled up the spec sheet on it. It's got the 3 VCOs. It'll do, let's see, the filters that it's got are the 24 dB Moog, the SE Classic 24 dB ARP, Juno and Jupiter with 3 modes, 24 and 12 dB, and then mix. It's got an SE Classic Oberheim filter with low end bandpass. Filter frequency range is expanded by a whole tone. 4 envelopes. It's pretty capable.
It's funny. They stole a lot of that from the Omega, like the Jupiter filters and stuff. That's freaking amazing.
It looks, for anybody who hasn't seen it,
Well,
please
what's
look
weird
it up.
is they're doing a thing that I think is weird because they just re-released the Mini, right? And it's got a bunch of cool new features. So they're like competing with themselves, which is always a weird place to be.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's maybe market for it because they've got a lot more hype and publicity since working with Roland to put out the SEO2.
Yeah, that's true. Which sounds
I
great.
mean, look at this thing.
I like the
It
big
looks
red
like
button.
test equipment, which makes me kind of horny.
It looks
Yeah.
like something that came out of a hospital.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. And the
It's like
screen
some-
on it.
It's
The
the big
screen
red
on it.
knob, man. That big red knob that says "Don't touch me" makes you want to touch it all the more, right?
It says Q on top of it and 287 point font.
Yes.
Screen on it. The screen on it, as best I can tell, I'm going to do some very hacky, rough estimating here. I'm going to call it. It's a 4-line LCD screen that I think has something like 20 characters across. It is a straight 1984 screen.
Dude, the original LCD that came with mine was like amber, I think. It was just terrible. It was unusable, really.
And
The thing is, yours was not made in 2021.
yeah,
No.
this one, Jodie Foster used to contact her dad in
I know,
contact,
right?
and it didn't work. So then she had to use the harmonizer from Eventide.
So like my
right.
dad, my dad used to sell test equipment and like electronics.
like oscilloscopes?
What's that?
Like oscilloscopes.
Beyond that,
Gener-
these things were more like these things were designed to like test like variances of vibrations of rocket ships and stuff like that. And as well as like, whirly gigs on helicopters and that kind of thing. So it was like pretty hardcore test equipment. And these things would come in a box that looks like this. And they'd have knobs or anything like that. And they'd have a screen. It was a little bit bigger than the one on the SE3X. And it was green. And you would hook stuff up into it. And it would give you pretty much the Unknown Pleasures album cover every time. Because it was showing...
Well, I think they should release a Heimbach edition.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Yeah,
It's
so whenever
like,
Heimbach busted
it's
out,
white,
I'm like,
medical, German, and very
yeah,
cold.
I'm like, oh, is there any Scientific Atlantis test equipment or like Spectral Dynamics? Those are the places he worked for. So it's like seeing this kind of stuff just makes me think of, because he used to bring this stuff home and let me play with it, and this is kind of what got me into this shit, because he did electronics as a hobby and everything like that. So he had like tone generators in his workshop and everything, and he'd bring these things home. We'd plug them in, and I would watch how waveforms worked and everything. And that's kind of how I got into electronic music, is by noodling with that. So every time I see these like boxes, I really hope that you open them up and they smell like dusty tubes that got turned on, and like that burning dust smell, and it, that kind of thing, because it brings me back. So yeah, I love that. I kind of love that form factor, or lack thereof, I should say.
Yeah, it's cool. It looks very throwback.
Yeah, it does, and I think
sure.
that's fantastic.
I mean, so it's like $2,200,
Mhm.
which is not that's not like bargain basement synth territory by any means, but for what it does, and for the pedigree that it comes with, and everything, it seems like it's very reasonably priced.
Yeah.
One thing that's really cool about these was that they say presets. That was another far out thing. Was you
Mhm.
an analog synth? that
Yeah.
saved presets. And for like 1991, that was like, what?
Especially for the for the mini Moog
Mhm.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
found.
Like the mono. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like tons of 80s synths could do that, but I just mean like, yeah, if you wanted a Moog that had MIDI and could do presets, that's like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's pretty amazeballs. So, speaking of Moog, dun dun dun, a report from the Asheville Blade came out last week about a civil rights lawsuit of workplace discrimination going on at Moog. That is pretty contrary to the popular image of their progressive attitudes there, I think. So the suit discusses one of the workers, people that worked there, was basically yelled at and like talked down to and everything like that, and just specifically saying, well, you're a woman and blah 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 blah, and using that kind of thing as reasons not to promote her, as well as to not send her to to things that were part of her job. And this is coming up from like pretty high up the chain at Moog. I'm really just like going over this very lightly right now as far as like what happened and what's going on there. But it was like, it was basically she was originally put into a position, and then they moved her to a different position because of the experience that she had in the workplace and everything like that. And it just kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah, that was a really disappointing article to read, and I think it was. I mean, I guess if you're a humongous misogynist, bigoted person and think, well, good for them. Maybe it wouldn't be disappointing for you, but if you aren't that kind of person, I found it super disappointing to read.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Andrew, how it was. It's so in conflict with what their public image is. They have invested a tremendous amount of effort into appearing a certain way, even down to the artist that they choose to partner with. And I thought that was really, disappointing, because one of the things that's attracted me to Moog is that one of the same things that's attracted me to Synthstrom over the years is that like, that I think they're doing good in the world and making the world a better place. They're not just putting out these nice pieces of technology and instruments. So this article like shook me and really agitated me a lot. And so I went down this rabbit hole of reading reviews about their company. So I went down like Glassdoor and started doing a bunch of reading about employee reviews. And it's super heartbreaking to find out that this is not new. This is the first lawsuit that has gotten attention. But if you go through the Glassdoor reviews of Moog and Asheville, this is like a long-standing problem, like, variations on a theme here, which was, I don't know, like, I can't speak for anybody else's politics, but that's not the kind of thing that I want to support. And it really kind of like hurts me to feel like that that I've played some sort of a role in participating in that kind of an ecosystem. But it's apparently like a long-standing thing there, because you can see the timestamps on when the reviews were posted from the employees on Glassdoor, and it seems like it's been going on for a while.
It's devastating, really. I mean, as I'm a longtime fan of Moog, and like the stuff they did, like Moog Fest was extremely progressive. Like it was like the most like feminist, queer, LGBTQ insanity. I mean, it was in the best way possible. It was a blast. And seeing how progressive they were, seeing how progressive Bob Moog was, and everything like that. And then reading about this kind of stuff, it really like it's kind of painful.
Yeah, it really sucks.
Yeah.
And it does feel like, I see you there, Christoph, with your...
Sorry, yeah, I wasn't
your
laughing at you,
box.
Andrew. I was laughing at Christoph because he brought out his boob just to show.
I know, I always have to be an asshole, and I know it's a serious matter, but I handle uncomfortable things with humor. And I'd wanted to hope that this was just a disgruntled employee trying to cash in, and that it's all allegedly. And the company made a great statement about how they'd been cleared before, but I didn't go down the rabbit hole. I didn't do the research that Jeff did, and I know that sucks. And I gotta say, I feel a little less bad about buying the Behringer, the Vogue instead of the.
Not that Behringer probably, who knows what's going on there.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure that Behringer killed orphans to make my sense.
Yeah,
but
I
at least,
so.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
We don't know about it yet.
Yeah, I have no evidence that Behringer does anything bad on that level. They've done made some other.
Behringer, I'm just kidding. Please send me free stuff. I love you.
Yeah,
I've never.
I mean, seriously.
Also, I'll look the other way, Moog, if you want to send me free stuff.
I mean, a Moog one would go away. I do think one of the things that is plausible here, and it seems at least reasonably supported by some of the facts, some of the things that I was able to read, is that it could be a sort of a tale of two companies in some ways. I think that the work that Moog has done to develop the image has been genuine. It is possible for those two things to coexist. There can be a toxic culture on this one front. And also, there can be a contingency within the company that is legitimately working towards these things. Given the roster of artists with whom they've worked, and your description of what Moog Fest is, how many LGBTQ artists that they are consistently working with, it doesn't feel like, I don't know, for a company to be sort of like at its heart fundamentally in opposition to that, it doesn't seem to me that the two of those things could coexist if the core of the thing was a certain way. So it does seem like there are some, I guess my armchair analysis of it would be that it does seem like that there are some people with some real power inside the company that are doing some things that they absolutely should not be tolerated to do, and they need to really figure out what house they need to clean there. And I think that it can't be allowed to take away from the legitimate positives that they've. Yeah. They can both coexist at the same time.
I think, one thing to say, though, about that, and I don't want to turn this into a political show, but I think just because you're associated with something doesn't mean you're not bringing a lot of negative bias into something, right? So, I mean, you can outwardly say all kinds of stuff, but, I've worked in a lot of IT and, software engineering shops where there was this sort of unspoken gender bias and sexism, right? That, and you can speak all you want publicly about one thing or another, but in the trenches, things can often be different. And you're right, it actually boils down to individuals and little cults of personality sometimes. But so you're right, they may not be necessarily contradictory.
Yeah. I hope that things get better. I guess that's the thing for me. Is like if this woman has been treated, if it is true that she has been treated unjustly, I hope she finds some justice there, and I hope that things get better for other people, because that is not That is not the way towards the future for music tech.
This is a public relations nightmare. So hopefully they will do things internally to fix these issues and come out of it a better company that their customers can be more proud of.
I think that's really the point.
I think they're trying to be a good company, and if they've had failures, but still because they've trying, then hopefully they'll try to do better.
And that's really the thing. That's all we can ever add. That's all we can do as individuals. And this is an employee-owned company, and as individuals, all we can do is try to do better. And realize the fact that we fuck up. And unfortunately, they're in a position where they don't want to accept the fact that they fucked up. If this is if this is all what's going on, which I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, and owning up to it and saying, yeah, we're fucking up and we need to change our culture and blah 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 blah. Admitting that kind of thing will give you much more respect than lying about it.
Yeah,
and they did that with their mural fuck up a while ago. Do you remember that one where they did a for anybody who doesn't remember, they hosted a contest, essentially an art contest, to design a mural for the outside of the building of the Asheville office for the main front wall of the thing. And they essentially said, hey, send your art in and we'll pick the one that we like the most and put it up, which is a garbage way to do any sort of an art contest for designers.
With the experience.
Hey, do a gazillion hours of free work and we'll just pick the free work that we like the best, and here's a hat in return for your free work. And that's not for anybody who's like, maybe I should do a contest.
Sounds like the Scholastic art competition in high school.
That sounds like most of the concerts I've had to play.
Exposure bucks do not pay the mortgage.
I'll tell you what, though, man. From playing concerts, I have so much XP. I can finally get that leather armor.
Yeah, the leather cod piece. But they did an about face on that one, and they actually turned it around pretty well. I thought, they said, whoops, we made a mistake. We'd like you to submit your concept. We're going to pick the concept that we like the best, and then we'll commission the work from the artist at a fair market rate. Cool. That's a great fix for that
admit
thing.
You're wrong, fix the behavior, boom,
Yeah. So hopefully they can do it here.
I hope so. Because it's such a good game out. I've been to Moog headquarters in Asheville. Asheville is an incredible town. The factory is really cool. The people there all seemed really, really nice. And every time I go to Moog Fest and talk to the engineers, everyone's really into what they do and everything like that. So I really hope that they can fix this corporate culture that that we as external people don't see, and but now becoming exposed to and understanding a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as if they're a giant company.
Right.
I mean, they're not Roland, so they can't probably continue to afford to pay out lawsuit settlements and destroy their customer sort of admiration. So I mean, they're bigger than a boutique, but not by much. And someone, I think, like most of us, have a political consensus that we think this is shit, and I'm going to vote with my wallet on some of this stuff. It's how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of class, Behringer.
You want to get that box, Chris?
You want to get that box out there, buddy? So Behringer continues to show off how classy they are by cloning an open source synthesizer and making the Eurorack Brains, which is basically a clone of the Mutable Instruments plates. So the plates is, the Brains. It's a bunch of digital oscillators, and that's basically what this little Eurorack piece of doodad is. They're selling it for $149. They just announced it. Plates is a pretty cool piece of gear. I do not have it, but I've heard a lot of people that have it, and they really, really like it. Mutable Instruments is a fantastic company. But One of the things
Well,
one of the
I
things
will
that
say-
Mutable Instruments does is that they open source all the software. I'm sorry, they open source all the software.
Mhm.
And Behringer doesn't explicitly credit Emily Gillett on the Brains page, but they do make a link to the source code.
That's so lame.
Well, Arturia also
Arturia
does it.
did this as well with the
Yeah.
Micro Freak.
Yep, but I mean, I think they credit that it came from plates,
Well,
don't they?
That was a collaboration, and they've done that on more than one
Yeah.
of their devices. Because
So Arturia showed that you can do this the right way with open source, and Behringer showed that you can do it the Behringer way
Yes.
as well.
And with the Micro Freak, just to be really explicit about it, it's a component of a larger system, right? You know, it's a, I don't remember exactly whether they pulled like a couple of oscillators in or something like that, but they didn't sort of like re-envision the entirety of the module as like a constrained module in a box, you know, whereas Behringer completely did that. And I want to say this one is available for free or very close to free on VCV.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the Mutable stuff is on VCV if you want to try it out for very low to no money, because it is open source, and there are official ports of it that are supported by Emily, and they're there. And so the one for Platts is there for like nothing or a very little amount of money.
this is almost like an early days sort of Microsoft business model, right? It's like, we're going to buy CPM from somebody who has no idea what it's worth and sell it to IBM for like a ton
Right.
of money. It's dumb.
Gross. It's the here I made this meme.
Yeah.
You know, I made this. Here, I made this. Yeah, that's what's going on. I don't know. Uli can take a long walk
Well,
off a short pier. I have
here's
two
the thing
pieces
though
there,
is
too,
is
but
that
it's lame.
here's the thing is that if there any firmware improvements they make on this thing, because they are using open source, they are technically required to release that back out.
Yep.
Because it's an open, and any source code should be given back out through the Creative Commons license.
Yeah. I mean, if they're using that kind of license, then
Right.
yeah, they're literally.
But if they close the license on it, but
The
they
good
took
news-
the code, then they're not really doing this, the whole GPL thing correctly.
They're not going to improve upon it.
No, they'll make it.
We
yeah,
all have seen this company. They're not improving upon anything. They're going to take whatever Emily releases as improvements in source code, and they're going to repackage it with a goofy yellow B on it and be like, here, download our newest release. And it'll be like a week and a half later.
So Christoph, real quick, I noticed that you like to take out your Behringer Model D and show it off.
Yep.
At least the box. So is the Model D still in the
Yeah.
box?
Oh, that's where I store it.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you
Yeah.
put it back in there because it won't stay in tune.
Yeah, I haven't had the tuning problem with
Okay.
mine.
I haven't either because I
But
haven't used it in a year.
Extensively either. I have watched the video of the guy throwing it out the window.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
Go
I
cows.
haven't had the tuning problem.
Okay.
I mean, I did have to really tune it when I 1st
Mhm.
got it. But since then, I mean, it does warm up and
Yeah.
change, but it's generally stayed in tune. But yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm.
What can you
Yeah,
do?
it's
You know what?
disappointing.
Behringer did a shitty thing again. But if you have a modular system, you could do this, but you should get the real one
Yeah,
instead.
support Emily.
The real one's not very expensive
No.
either.
You know, maybe if you're overseas, you get hit with really bad import tariffs that Behringer can get around. But really, just buy the original. Support this woman.
Well, I mean, she's based out of France, so
Yeah.
and I mean, I have a couple of clones of Mutable stuff, but it's the stuff that they no longer make.
Yeah,
So I got clones of those kinds of things because they don't,
but it's
and they've
and nobody complains about mutable quality.
Yeah.
People love what they make. It's great. Support
Mhm.
them. You know,
Mhm.
Behringer's doing fine. You don't need to buy theirs, just like you don't need to buy their ripoff of the Arturia keypad.
the key
Or
step.
whatever it
Yeah,
is, the
the
key step.
key step that is the exact
No
same
button.
thing as the key step and costs the same as the key step.
And now
Zero
it's
reason.
$3.
Oh, I'm sorry, $3 whole less.
So there's zero reason to get that, and there's zero reason not to get the mutable instruments.
Absolutely.
So get that
Yeah,
one.
get the mutables.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does look like the VCV library is free.
Oh, lovely.
So
Yeah.
if you don't have VCV, first stop, go get that, and then install these plugins. If you just do a search for, audible instruments on VCV, you'll find them.
And it's cheaper than
Yeah.
Behringer stuff.
Yes, because
Because
it's
it's
free.
free, as in beer.
And it is also following the letter and the spirit of the license.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like Behringer has done some stuff that's pretty good. I have 2 pieces of Behringer gear, and neither of them is a clone of anything. And I think that if Roland doesn't want to make 808s and 909s, and people want to buy 808s and 909s that are analog 35 years on at this point, I don't know. I guess somebody should make that. That seems totally reasonable. But I have 2 things from them that are, as far as I know, their own design. One is a monitor controller, which is 100 times larger than it ought to be, but it's very good and it works really well. And the other one is the I think it's called the 3DFX 2000 or something. It's a rack mount effects unit that Behringer makes. It's very inexpensive, and it is astoundingly good. I mean, it would be good if you paid $500 or $600 for it. It'd be very good, and it's like $129.
I remember buying the virtualizer.
Yep.
I think I bought it in 98,
remember when you bought
99.
that.
It was like and I had a
This is the
vocoder on
updated
it.
version of that.
Cool.
I have some of their knob boxes, their little knob MIDI controllers. That's at the BCR 2000, I think. What is this? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to get the re-release of that when it comes out.
I have 2 of those sitting around here. I use one of them to control the Alpha Juno and the other one for what have you.
It's just a shame though, because it's clearly they have some really talented and smart people there. They're able to solve these some of the challenges that they have certainly encountered in modernizing and recreating some of the Roland drum machines and some of the other things. They haven't been trivial challenges. Anybody who thinks that recreating a 35-year-old drum machine that was not surface mount, turning it into a modernized surface mount device that can be sold at a reasonable cost 35 years on.
Never mind the fact that MIDI doesn't work.
It's not a trivial challenge.
Yeah, well, I think buying that company Midas was a huge step for them. Because I think those folks were they were the brains behind the Deep Mind 12, and I suspect a lot of the other analog.
Yeah, and they've hired a lot of great engineers. They hired great people to work on their DS80 clone.
Yeah.
They hired some really great people to work on the 2600, like a guy who's been doing mods and restorations of 2600s for forever. So they work with really good people. So you can't blame the whole company. It's probably just sociopaths, and nobody can say no to them.
Yeah.
And so they sometimes
the
they just do insanely dumb things, like the cork sniffer, and somebody should have just said, no, you can't do this, and there was nobody that could say no, and they did it, and it's a huge mess.
Yeah.
There's somebody that needs to say, no, don't do this, it's not worth it. And they just and for some reason they get overridden, or there's nobody saying it, but somebody needs to come in. They need to hire someone like me to come in and say no.
It's your job. The chief.
What do you do at Behringer? I tell Yuli no.
I want a T-shirt with you on it, Christoph, that looks like the Uncle Sam. I want you, but it says help. No. Yeah. No. You are making bad choices today. Stop.
Can you imagine if you're the guy who's hired?
That one, yeah.
Can you imagine your job? You get it as a job. You go, I'm going to go work on synthesizers. This company has been doing some cool stuff. I'm going to go work on these synthesizers. And they're like, okay, here is an arterial key step. It was made 9 years ago. It's like $112, like $109 version of it.
Go.
go. You got 6 months. And you come in and you're that guy and you're like, what the fuck?
Why
is
did I
going
get?
on with my
Why do I
life?
work here? What the fuck?
You've heard of yes men? I'm the opposite. I'm a no man.
You call those executive producers?
No, man.
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah.
Also, like, was it Carnegie who said if you have 2 employees and they always agree with each other, you only need one of
Yep.
them?
That's why I work alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Ooh, who you got to fire, though?
well, I don't know.
Well, it becomes like the Monty Python pantomime horse
Yeah.
skit where they have to fight to death.
I don't
for it, yeah.
I don't fire anybody, but my boss gives me the best hand jobs.
Oh, yeah, reach around?
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, goodbye to the Twitch channel.
Oh, sorry, bots.
This was
Oh,
fun.
fun.
Bye-bye. I'm going to tell you my frog joke next.
Is that the Leaky Frog Industries? I think
Right.
that's what that was.
Totally. Well, we're still on, apparently.
Well, actually, there is a flood detector called the leaky frog. And basically, it looks a little bit like a frog, and you put it down, and then if the area gets wet, an alarm goes off. So you put it next to your water heater.
There you go. The Leaky Frog, also the name of my
That's a
bar.
real
How do
thing.
you
You
know
can buy it
this?
right now. I got one on Woot.
Nice.
How do you know this?
So I have one. It's next to my water heater. It was on Woot. There was a Woot off.
It's like the blue light special of the internet
This
age.
brain is filled with useless things that
true.
don't make any money.
It's true. So, breaking news from Behringer. Christoph. Here's Christoph with a report. Christoph?
All right. This is the DS80.
Yep.
All right. Get up there. All right. So, yeah, they've released an update. They've been teasing that they're going to make a CS80 clone for years. And, you know, the problem, one of the things that Behringer does is they talk about a synthesizer they're going to release years before it's going to come out because it takes a long time for some of them. And what they do is they'll talk about one that they're going to release that's really challenging and it hasn't come out for years. And then they'll release like a synth every day from like November to like January and just overwhelm the market. And so like they can roll out these. And I think it's basically there's a lot of framework that they can reuse on all the synths. And then so they can, you know, flood the market with like these mono synths because they've got one firmware that they're just modifying and reusing. Yep. But the poly synths require a much different, require a different framework. So they've made progress with their UBI XA, which is their OB XA clone. But people are still wanting the CS80 clone, which was the most expensive synth in the world. Like, you know, you could buy, except for like a Korg PS3200 or 3300, which is terrible. And it's really just famous because it's one oscillator per key. So and it's a whole synth voice per key. So it has 33 voices, but only tied to each note, which is a very expensive way to implement polyphony. But they didn't know they wanted to implement polyphony, so they came up with that way until someone came up with voice stealing in a better way. So the CS80 was the most expensive synth until it recently got dethroned by a super expensive Jupiter 8. And so the CS80 clone is really challenging because the CS80, for all of its greatness, is also incredibly terrible. And because it's really unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
It's also really sensitive to heat. So people that had them put it into an air-conditioned studio. They were scared to turn it off. You hire a technician. So it's most famous for being used by Vangelis on the Blade Runner score. He had to keep 3 of them. And they cost him like 13 grand back in 1980 money when that was like way more than a car. And that was like a bunch of cars. And he had 3 of them and he just had to rotate through them as they were getting serviced. And they've become incredibly expensive. You can't build them anymore because they were made out of custom chips that haven't been made in forever. So the only way to repair one is to find a dead one that's been kind of scrapped and to pull chips off of that. And the chips go for about $1,000 a pop for just, and there's a lot of chips. So there's an incredible demand for a clone. Now, quite famously, there's a clone called Deckard's Dream, except for it's not really a clone. It's inspired by, but it's really using Curtis chips, which are used, Profits and other synths, and they've modified it a lot, but it's not really an authentic clone. So Behringer has released a video talking about the challenges that the chip isn't made, so they're making it component level right now for their prototyping, which will be expensive to make, but it could also be authentic. And they've done this before with their VP340 clone, which uses divide down technology, which is why that like very simple synth is so expensive, because it's got a lot of hardware in there, because like you can't cheap it to make this happen. You've got to put all this electronics to make it authentic, and it is. The Behringer VP340 clone is much more authentic than the boutique that Roland put out. So it's very realistic, and so I think they know if they put out a CS80 clone, it's going to have to sound and be right. And the thing is, people would never put up with a CS80 now because it's so unreliable and because of the heating issues and stuff like that. So not only do they have to make what's considered, for a lot of reasons, maybe the greatest synth ever, and but I would argue it's not. It doesn't have self-resonating filters. There's a lot it can't do, but what it does do, it does beautifully, and it sounds great. But a big part of why everybody really wants it is just, besides that they think it's going to turn them into evangels, which it isn't. It's like thinking that the camera is going to make you the good photographer, and it's not. It's the use. But it's also that, the thing that it does do well is really well. But the other reason is that because it was the most expensive synth, so everybody wants it. And then when they get it, they're like, oh yeah.
Why was this thing so much money?
So, but it's just, it was expensive because it had a lot of features that weren't available at the time. It was, it has this weird way of doing patch memory where it gives you like a small version of the front panel to store a second patch, which is...
That's my favorite part. The Munchkin looks like jumpers, almost like a little electrical jumper.
And it has a bunch of presets, and then it has like, you can back up your user setting over here and do that. But nobody had thought of another way until Dave Smith came through with his revolutionary way of doing it. It's a groundbreaking synth. It's a historic synth, and they spared no expense to make the greatest synth ever, that they could. And Yamaha frequently does, and usually they make it with the worst interface. But here, people love the interface because they made a fantastic key bed and a fantastic ribbon controller, which allowed an expressivity that is really lacking in keyboards. So it's got the polyphonic aftertouch and that ribbon controller, so you can really play it the way a guitarist can modify the sound with like pitch bends and bending the strings and a wah-wah bar. So you can really play it in a way that it sounds like you, and you're adding expressiveness to it. And that's lacking in tons of synths before it and tons of synths after it. So it's legendary status. It's earned, but it's also lacking. There's a lot of things it can't do, but what it does do does well. Should it be the most expensive synth? Maybe not. Maybe the Jupiter 8 taking that spot in auction is deserved because it's also a fantastic synth, although it doesn't do everything either. But still, so Behringer's made a lot of progress on this, and they've talked about how they're trying to get it to be accurate, and they said that they've emulated the actual board, and I don't know how they're getting around not having that chip. So I don't know if they're going to make their own CS80 chips, which would be, if you can do the production run on it, and if you can get that, that'd be great. If you could do it without violating patents, although I guess the patents have probably expired. But also, there's no documentation left. All the documentation is lost. So, and it's hard to just tear apart a chip and remake the chip. But so they've released that they've made progress on this. People have been waiting for an update like this for years. So, it's exciting news. Behringer released that they had finished making a polyphonic aftertouch keyboard, which was really challenging. And it must be because very few people do it well and have released them. So, and they haven't put this keyboard into anything. So that was probably designed for this. Maybe they'll also put it in the Albexe clone. But it's exciting news, and they think it's really authentic. And they've got, what's his name? John from the UK Manchester office. He gave his last name, but it's a real expert. So this is exciting news from so the person working on it, he's great. Maybe he works for a bad company, but it's maybe bad money and bad company creating something great with great people. So Blah 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 blah
No,
blah.
it's good points.
Anybody go on any tangents on that?
They should do a hyper authentic vintage mode that you can toggle on and off.
Where the board
where
melts.
the synthesizer just like stops working every like 7 minutes or something. All joking aside, I hope they figure out how to make a keyboard. Like, I gotta say, I don't think, maybe I'm just an idiot and don't understand things or something, but I don't know. I don't think making a keyboard in the year of our Lord 2021 is that complex. Like, plenty of companies have managed to do it. I have a keyboard, a Yamaha Porta Sound that I got as a Christmas present, like, I don't know, 87 or something. And the keyboard on it is absolutely adequate for playing notes. And that's, what is that? It was like 34 years old at this point that I've had this thing, and I've still got it, and it's completely fine. The Behringer DeepMind keyboard is the most absurdly, comically bad keyboard I have ever seen. If you haven't ever gone to the Sweetwater page for it, like, please go to the Sweetwater page for it and look at the photographs and zoom into the photographs. And in the photography on the Sweetwater page, you can see that the keys are like this and all like wiggity whack from one another, and they stick out. They're different heights. They stick out differently. It's insane. I feel a fairly high degree of confidence that I could make a better keyboard than Behringer did on this thing. And I've never made a keyboard before, and I feel like pretty good about saying that I could go make a better keyboard.
I think you could do it with Legos, Jeff. I think that would be.
I mean,
at least it'll be straight.
Possibly be that hard.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
So I like, all joking aside, I sincerely hope that they've gotten it down, because that would be good. The Hydra has an exceptional polyphonic aftertouch keyboard. It's very, very good.
And it's cost effective. It's not a very expensive synth.
No,
Well,
it's not.
Well, they've also got the CSA. What do you call
ribbon.
the sliding ribbon? Thank you, sliding ribbon.
Yeah, they have that on the Hydra too. Yeah, so I mean, like, for what you get in the company there, they popped out. I know they have people who are, like, not newbies to doing this kind of work.
I
but
think their core manufacturing are people that just made keyboards assemblies, like mechanical stuff. And I forget what the name of that parent company was, but
like a lot of keyboard companies don't actually make their keyboards. They used to outsource them a lot.
Like
I
Fatar
remember
was a big
back in the 90s. Fatar made most of the key beds.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies weren't actually really doing it, or didn't have the know-how. And I know that let's keep in mind the DeepMind was Behringer's first foray into the synth market, and I don't think they knew if anybody would buy a synth from Behringer, so they probably cut a lot of corners, and they did some things right, but they probably cut a lot of corners, like, just to test the water to see, will people buy a Behringer synth? And then when people did, and everybody complained about the keyboard, I think they realized, all right, let's fix the keyboard thing. So they put a lot of research into it.
And the UI is like a
1991
an English person. The UI is like an English speaking person described what is a UI in Chinese to a Martian. And the Martian built a UI from it. It is insanely bad.
Which is in line with, like, 90s Roland and almost every era of Yamaha. But they should have known better.
Yeah, I sold my DeepMind 12 because the keyboard was hilarious, B because the interface was even funnier, and I couldn't click with it because of the interface. And it was funny because I sold it, and the guy who bought it, like, emailed me 2 days later. And he's like, "It doesn't power on." I'm like, "It powers on." It turns out that, like, during shipment in the Roland box, in the Behringer box that it came in and everything like that, and everything was packed nicely and everything like that. But there's a ribbon cable that doesn't stay on very tightly, and the ribbon cable fell out.
Dude, have you ever tried to? Do you remember pulling ribbon cables out of PCs?
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard.
Yeah,
to F up,
yeah,
dude,
they're pretty in there.
Actually, I've had a lot of ribbon cables pull out of PCs in shipping, and had to insert them for clients.
But I mean,
So,
I guess
that is the thing.
I guess
that can
the
happen.
question is why would you use a ribbon cable for that?
Cheap manufacturing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like
But
Does
again,
he have a box of them laying around from the 90s?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
I mean, honestly, I've opened up my old synthesizers and there's ribbon cables.
oh yeah,
in
my
there.
my Korg
My Kurzweil.
yeah, my Z1 has like all kinds of ribbon cables and it's pretty.
Well-
but they're not stretched out really like super thin.
No, they're not.
And they're not like plugged
They're
into the
like
main board and then plugged into the
wobbled
screen,
up.
you know? Yeah, there was like usually like some give in there and stuff like that. This thing was like you can play
Yeah.
guitar on it.
not to play devil's advocate. I still own my
Don't play
D912.
devil's advocate. If I want to talk to the devil, I'll summon him.
Understand? Yeah. Honestly, I'm not in it. I'm not in any way associated. No. But so I do have it on my synth shelf, right? So I'm not actively using it. But I will say this: for all of those defects, I actually like it, and I can't explain why. I think it sounds really good. I like
It does.
I like the modulation capabilities with the TC Electronics effects, even if they aren't the greatest effects. And I'm able to make some really cool patches. But it's because when I go into an instrument, I try to think like that instrument. Because if I try to superimpose a good workflow or something that I understand about something I already use, I'm always disappointed. So I almost try to go in like childlike and see how I can do it. Would I be, if you hard pressed me to create a similar patch that I could create in another synth on this thing, I would be miserable. I probably couldn't do it. But just, I find it fun and I think it sounds good. And it is what it is.
It does
Yeah.
sound very good.
Yeah, and it's got some really nice functions that you won't even find in the Access Fires. Like it has an adjustment for oscillator slop that you can adjust to make it sound much thicker and analog, especially in unison mode. So it actually sounds better than a real Juno because the Juno's oscillators are so tight that the unison is frequently useless. And with the DeepMind, not just the detune, but the oscillator slop is adjustable, and it gives it a real shimmer. So it does have a difficult interface, and that is the kind of thing you're never going to see on a front panel. You're going to have to menu dive for it. So I understand that they used a menu system. They just put a lot of things in the menu system that should have had front panel controls. So they blew it on that, but it was their first synth. They were probably out of time, over budget, and they just had to get something out. And hopefully they learned a lot of lessons from it, and they won't make those same mistakes again.
Yeah.
I think trying to use sliders that have a pretty significant throw on them really ate up the real estate on that thing. So that was probably not a good decision.
Well, they were trying to 106 it way too much, and I'm not a slider fan for controlling anything except maybe volume, and I like the idea of using sliders to control envelopes, but other than that, I don't like using sliders for that kind of stuff.
And then they need to be 100 millimeters plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think there's 60 millimeters on the DeepMind. That's what I have in mind. Like 60 millimeters on a fader is too short.
Yeah. It's difficult to
especially when you've got these big fat like 4 or 5 millimeter caps on them that they've got. It's just like it's no way.
Unless you got the Roland boutiques where you're using tweezers to adjust the.
Look, you get out your microscope, and you get out your what's that thing called?
Chopsticks?
The
Readers?
no
Calipers?
Cans?
Oh, this would have been so much funnier if I'd have known the name of the thing. No, the
Magic Hands?
calipers. You know the calipers.
Yep.
And you start doing the opening, the spread opening measurements, and you just use them, pull it apart.
Yep. Turn a knob.
But I should also point out, though, that I don't have the same requirements from a synth that Jeff has, because my main synth for so long was a Kurzweil, which is just all menu diving.
But yeah.
And I'm used to Roland and Yamaha and tons of diving, because in the 90s, I didn't have a lot of analog gear, so everything was like there was just buttons and menus and then one slider usually, or an on-screen computer interface that would get me around how difficult they were to program. So for me, I have this out of my head and I know how to adjust it, not to dive in to get it. And it's a pain in the ass. But yeah, I made the mistake. I bought the Yamaha AN1X instead of the JP8000, which I should have spent more money and got the JP8000 because it's a great interface. I like the sound of the AN1X better, but it's a pain in the ass to use. So I understand where Jeff is coming from and where Andrew's coming about interface being more. But and again, I could stand up for the DeepMind because I'm used to having a real crap interface and having to dive
I
through.
like when Kurzweil came out with the updated firmware for the K2000, and they said, "We listened to you. We added more menus."
Yeah.
The problem with the menus on the DeepMind, Christoph, is I don't know how much. I don't think you've used it very much. Have you?
Nope.
Okay, so the problem with the menus on the DeepMind isn't actually the depth. It's actually that it isn't very sensible. So I can deal with menus being
No, I get
deep.
that.
It's that you'll have I can't remember, it's been so long since I've had the thing, but you'll have like, I don't know, like an envelope feature over here that's attached to this one menu, and then it like it'll do stuff like have like ADS on this menu over here on the far left, and there's another menu over here on the far right where the release happens. It's just like, it's bizarre choices that were made in it.
Well, that's just because they ran out of space and they're using word wrap, right? That's all it is, man.
Yeah, I mean they have a it's a really crappy little LCD display that's on there. I think it's like a 20 character LCD or something like that. And then also like the way that they try to do the modulation matrix is just like befuddling. Because it's got a very powerful modulation matrix. It's a very powerful modulation matrix, but getting around it, it's just kind of like, It
literally looks like FM8. It looks like the algorithms in FM8, where you're seeing like this thing feeds into that thing and goes over here and loops back and cycles back in itself. It's crazy. It is not.
It sounds like it really needs a computer editor for that kind of thing. Like I have a Matrix 1000.
It does have
you can't edit from the front panel.
Yeah, they have a good editor actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does have one.
Okay.
Well, we can shit talk Behringer.
It's the same good on the interface.
We can shit talk Behringer till the cows come home, or at least until Wambra just decides to throw his hands up in the air and says "fuck y'all" and walks away.
Look, they could just make us the board, the four of us. We're just the new board of directors, and they pay us $10 million a year each.
That sounds good. Christoph will be the vice president of no.
It seems like a steal, honestly. $40 million a year. If they have any kind of a reasonable sort of budget, you get 2.5x on that. That's profitable.
Yeah,
$40 million times 2.5. That's $100 million a year in revenue.
We got this.
I mean,
can I head an entire division just so we can recreate SP1200s and MPC 60s?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's called a BPC now.
They are working on their MPC clone called Jams.
Yep.
Oh, you? That's a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Unsubscribe.
But or maybe it's not a real clone, but it's that kind of workflow with the 16 pads, and it even has a thing for like a bit reduction to give you that old feel. I don't know if they're going to use the Moolah compression or if they're just going to bit compress like an S950. So
is it?
They announced that about a year ago.
Is it jams with a Z or jams with an S?
I hope it's with a Z.
Yeah. Let me take a look. I can't remember.
The pads will vary 20 grams
each.
Oh my god!
Between the
pads,
they'll
all be crooked.
One of them you'll have to hit it like this, and the other this. One of them will be off like.
You know what though?
Like this.
The guys at MPC stuff will be able to sell you replacement pads. You'll be fine.
True.
Yeah, it was my mistake.
Have authentic pads.
JAM, no S, no Z, just jam. I've put a link in the chat about it. And MPC style sampling group box.
There you go. Well, we were looking forward to seeing how that comes out. The Behringer
I'll give it 3 to 4 years.
Yep. First I'll have to figure out MIDI. So,
MIDI 2.
Right. So the Black Corporation, speaking of the Deckard's Dream, as well as the excellent Kajimi, announced the ISE-NIN, which is a reimaging of the Roland Jupiter 8. Dun dun dun. 8-voice polysynth.
Yep.
Full MPE support, micro tuning by ODD Sound, whatever the hell that is, to go alongside those sumptuous filters and rich VCOs that made Roland's one-time flagship synth the classic we all know and love. So there's nothing out there except the fact that they announced that this is coming out. This pre-orders will be starting next week, but no pricing available yet.
Yeah, it looks the part.
Yeah, well, I'm sure J.J. Abrams is on the wait list.
He probably is.
Oh, I bet. The fact
And
that,
the only one who can afford it.
yeah, one of those random synth nerds where you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. Did you?
I mean, if you told me Elon Musk had a bunch of synths, I probably wouldn't be shocked anymore. Like, I just don't.
J.J. Abrams has some other stuff.
Yeah,
in them.
he has a Kajimi.
Nice.
Because it's what him and Enrique from Novation worked on. They would get together and play with their Kajimis, and then I know, right?
that sounds.
I know, right? But
You're gonna get your channel banned. Is that your goal today?
I'm gonna play with my Kajimi after this
Playing
show.
with your Kajimis.
But it was Enrique is actually on the last Star Wars movie soundtrack because he did music for one of the bar scenes on the planet Kajimi.
Huh.
Yeah, so go Enrique. It's it's the only time one of the very few times that it's not John Williams composing music. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm on Black Corporation's website. They do have it on here. The pre-order built version is $11.99, which isn't bad. That's cheaper than I was expecting.
No.
It's not bad at all. I have the
That seems
JP.
impossible.
What is it called? The JP08
Oh,
critique.
it is
Yeah.
impossible. I'm sorry. You know what? That's the pre-order deposit.
There you go.
The total price is
What's the full price?
$3,749.
That sounds
Now
much
even-
more realistic.
Even still, that's not crazy. So the
No, it's-
You pay
The-
$8,000 or more for a real
Yeah.
one, or like $10,000.
yeah,
I mean, didn't want
And-
this go for 40?
Yeah, but you can buy the PCB kit for $1,000 and then build it yourself if you're in a DIY.
Now, I believe
yeah.
Jupiter 8 has Curtis oscillators, but the filter is a custom chip or a
I
custom
think
Roland
you are
chip.
correct.
So that'd be the challenge to recreate that Jupiter
Mhm.
sound. So has anyone else here gotten to play with a Jupiter 8?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So it's a dream come
Mhm.
true. It's
Mhm.
amazing. I totally
And I
get
fucking
it.
hate Roland,
It's-
and I like that synth.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and so I went to the Vintage Synthesizer Museum in San Francisco. Got to play with that right after a Prophet 5, and it's hard to make a bad sound with either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can immediately feel and hear the quality in a way that is hard to express.
Mm-hmm.
So you play. I mean, I've played with a lot of synths at a lot of synth stores, and there was and it wasn't because I don't think it was cognitive bias. I think it's a great sounding synth, and I think they adjust. I think a big part of what they used to have to do with these synths, but they had limited runs, and they had to really make them good before they sold them. It's not like software you can just release an update. They had to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
I think they really played with the ranges on the components. Or like, you could go farther with this and maybe be interesting, but it's more likely you're going to make crap. So I think a big part of it was just adjusting the ranges so that you only had a range where you could dial in good sounds. And so they feel obviously wonderful, but it's not just the build quality of it. They just sound great.
Yes.
I mean, and they just did
Yeah.
so many little fine tuning tricks, like the feedback of the filter back into itself to make it sound warmer. That's not adjustable, but it's in there and they know it, but they just sound great. This is a great synth for emulation. And if, Deckard, they did a good job. It's not dead on, but still, it sounds wonderful. I'm sure this is going to be great too.
Yeah.
But whether it'll be dead on, I don't know, because again, those chips aren't available, and I don't know if they're gonna, like what they did with Deckard Stream is they just used chips that were available, and sometimes that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen somebody do really good Vangelis cover with a SQ80, which isn't using any of the same components. So it sometimes it's just the person who's using the synth.
I still have
Sound.
SQ80, and I think it has Curtis filters in it, and
It
I love
does.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great synth. And it has my favorite chip in it, oscillator chip, the 3340.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy sounding.
Yep.
I actually I'm trying to sell mine, or I'm thinking about selling it, and I powered it on just to listen to it, and I'm like, gosh, this thing sounds really good. This is the problem. It's like a little kid trying to clean up his bedroom. You know what I mean? And I can't throw it in the dustbin.
No, so you tell yourself, all right, I just have to sample, and then I can do it. And then you spend an hour sampling drums. You're like, I can't stay mad at you.
So more news. So much news. Octasign, the free FM synth plugin inspired by FM8 and the Electron Mono Machine. So this thing is pretty cool. The price is right. It's free. It's a 4-operator FM synthesizer with 128 voices. Independent parameters for each of those voices. It's got a ridiculously flexible routing system. It looks really slick. Very simple design. And it's free and it's open source.
Dude, it runs on Linux.
Yeah, it runs on Linux. Hey!
Which is not common.
No, not for music
I
stuff.
know. No.
But what DAW are you going to use for that?
Reaper?
I mean, can you even record it?
Reaper?
Yeah.
I guess maybe you're the one person that learned how to use Ardor. Otherwise, you're probably going to use Reaper.
Well, Bitwig. They make Bitwig for Linux, too.
Oh, yeah, Bitwig. All right, so you got Bitwig, Reaper, and Ardor.
Yeah. I'm a big Linux user, but not for music. That's like that's a rabbit hole I never went down.
Yeah, that is a...
That's actually what kept me from switching to Linux, was that audio support was so weak.
Yeah.
It's actually not even a rabbit hole. It looks like a hole, but it's just like a black circle somebody painted on the
It looks like a hole, but it is, in fact, a butthole.
Yeah, there's no hole at all.
Like I do have Ubuntu Studio, which comes with an audio setup, but it's not nearly as good as what I've got with, Native Instruments Complete and Arturia B collection. So it's like I'm not going to bother.
Is that a distro, Christoph? Is that like a sub distro?
Yeah, that's a distro.
Okay.
Ubuntu Studio. They have a video editing 3D pack install or the music install. It's the same install, but you choose which way you want to go for which packages it's going to install.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Look,
And our
you
doors
could
part of
just you
What's
could
that?
just get a Porta Studio.
There you go. Seriously.
They're not open source, Jeff.
I believe the right tool for the right job,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it looks
The
cool.
Porta Studio is the right tool for every job.
Yeah, right? So is a Deluge. Let's be honest.
I want my Fostex 4-track back, man.
I remember
All
that
right,
thing.
so my critique of this FM synth is that although it only has 4 operators, and it doesn't have the workaround that's present in the TX81Z, probably the most famous of the 4-operator FM synths, which is frequently in FM you're wasting 2 operators to make a more complex waveform like a pseudo saw or a pseudo square.
Right.
And so what they do in the TX81Z and B200 and those other the more common Yamaha 4-op synths, not the game chips, but in these synths like the TX81Zs, they added additional waveforms. Like you have a triangle and you have a saw and you have a pulse, so you don't have to waste 2 operators to make that sound. You don't have that here, so it limits you. So they should have given you 6.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did add, which is unique, and except for outside of like the FM8, is that every operator, not just your carriers, but your modulators, has a separate output, going to your main, so that you can do additive synthesis using all 4 operators and not just your carriers going out. So that opens up some sonic capability. It'd be good for making organs and stuff like that. But I still think they should have just added another 2 operators, or added, the waveforms that we're looking for from the TX81Z.
Sure. And who knows what they might push out in the firmware update, a software update.
Yep. But still, it's free. It's an alternative to Dext. But I mean, Dext also only has sine waves, and it doesn't have this feature for additive, but you have 6 operators. So, and Dext is wonderful. So, this also adds more LFOs, and that's something missing from DX7 architecture, where you only have 1 LFO. So that's nice. But it's free, so I can't complain because it cost me money.
There is that.
Did you get your money's worth?
What'd you say?
Did you get your money's worth?
Yes, I did.
So yeah, that's a cool little piece of gear. Electron, speaking of the mono machine, Electron just released a new firmware for the ever popular Digitact sampler groove box device machine thing. 1.3.
Is that that's the tag?
That's the scientific term for it. The sampler groove box thingy thing. Added some cool functionality to the device. They have external audio input functionality, which they always had the external audio input, but there's now like an actual mixer for the input, so you can apply like the effects. You can make it a source as for side chaining on the compressor, that kind of stuff. They also added a bunch of more filters on there as well. They've given you like 2 parametric EQ filters. They did a bass width filter. They put a filter envelope delay parameter on there. They added a second LFO, which is always kind of nice, and you can also use the LFO to modulate the first LFO, which is always fun. I think that's one of the best things about the Octatrack is they give you like 3 LFOs per track, which gives you all kinds of goofy fun times. They extended the tune, or the sample pitch of it, down to minus 60 semitones. I think before it was like 24, so now you can work multi-track recording functionality and step recording mode. I don't know anything about that one yet. I haven't played with it. I just downloaded onto my Digitact about an hour before we got started and was messing with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious about that because I'm like, does that mean you can just like toggle in real time without changing?
That's
like,
what I'm thinking.
not really sure.
That's what I'm thinking is that you can just do like that's what I think is that you can just jump to the next track while you're doing step recording instead of jumping out and then going to the next track.
Yeah.
Which is nice because it definitely gives you a little bit of a faster, bouncing around kind of thing. Some like UI improvements and stuff like that. Like in the LFO, you can actually see what they actually show what the LFO looks like, what wave you're in, and that kind of thing. Just like some like nice little improvements with the interface. Improve the transition when changing between 2 filter types. Thank you. And then incoming MIDI CC for the effects parameters is now only received on the set effects control MIDI channel and not on the auto MIDI channel. Thanks. That's nice of them. So that actually works the way it should. So yeah, I mean, I have a Digitact. I love it. It's a great device. It's a lot of fun. I was playing with it just last week, and I felt a little bit like I was betraying the deluge by messing with it. But not too much.
You filthy bastard.
That's me. I'm just disgusting. I really like, I'm in love with the Electron workflow. I love their sequencers. So, I mean, I don't feel
think
that
the
bad.
Digitact has, in my opinion, one of the coolest, even though like as a finger drummer, I have to say the buttons are maybe a little clicky, but aesthetically, I think it's really beautiful. And I really grok the workflow in some ways more than the rhythm, which is kind of weird because it's probably the rhythm is probably a more full featured thing in some ways. But
it is, but they've taken like a lot of the complexities of the Electron workflow and simplified it a little bit. And
on the rhythm
on the Digitact. Because I mean the rhythm is pretty much, if you got like an analog keys or an analog 4, and you got the rhythm, they're almost the exact same interface. And then if you get an Octatrack, it's like it's like they hired some guy, pulled him out of the padded room, had him build the Octatrack, then put him back into the padded room, even crazier than when he walked out.
Wasn't that the first one they made?
The Octatrack? No.
Not the first one, but like the first one was in this.
Oh, as far as
sort
like
of,
the Dark Trilogy,
Yeah, the first thing they made was the SID chip
the Sid
thing
Station.
they did.
Yeah.
It was SID Station.
Yeah.
As far as like the
Then they
dark
did
the Dark
Mono
Trilogy, for want of a better term, yeah, the Octatrack was the first thing that they made of it. But if you look
Yeah.
at like the Octatrack compared to the Mono Machine or the drum station, was it called the drum station?
Mono
The Mono
Station.
Station. What was the drum one called?
Is that the one with the keyboard attached? I
Yeah.
think.
Mono Machine.
Yeah,
Or,
the Mono Machine.
Machine.
And the machine drum. So those
Machine
those
drum.
two have a very similar interface to the Rhythm and the Analog 4. The Octatrack has, and so I can see the progression from those. The Octatrack, because it's such its own device and because it's so ridiculously powerful and because it does so much, it like they had to completely rethink the interface, and that's the only Electron piece of gear that has that interface.
Yeah. Well, it's super unique too. From what I mean, I haven't used it all that much, but it seems like it is kind of its own instrument too.
Yeah.
You know, it is a, you know, it's sort of like its own. It's a piano in a world of woodwinds, kind of.
Yeah, it really is. It's definitely, and it has its own like weird, unique quirks and learning curves and stuff like that. And it's fun and everything like that. And I can see why they said, okay, this is great, but we need to have something that is more accessible. So I think that's why they built the Digitact, because the Digitact has a similar workflow to the Rhythm, as you know, and consequently the analog 4. So that's kind of helpful, but it's still and they cut some corners with it to make it cheaper. And is it like bad? You know, like all the samples are mono, but all the effects are stereo. So is that a big deal? I mean, they're marketing it as a kind of a drum machine, so stereo samples on a drum machine isn't as big of a deal. But the effects sound good.
Honestly, if you're right,
you know.
If you're writing music that requires stereo to be good,
Yeah.
maybe you haven't written great music.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to do with post-production and stuff like that. And I think now a lot of people are doing weirder automation and stereo field stuff. Only because when I used to ride in Ubers, I noticed that a lot of contemporary music was like going banana pants with stereo field stuff, you know? And you're just like, whoa. But to your point, absolutely. I mean, especially for a drum machine. My favorite drum machines are almost all mono, and what the hell?
Yeah. But, you know, bouncing stuff around and moving your hi-hats around in the pan field is, you know, fun. Obviously, I'm a big fan of that. What I love about the Electron is the automatableness of everything on there. You know, like you can automate in a steppy-ass way how the filter moves around. And that's like one of my favorite little tricks on the analog Rhythm is to take the toms and just like automate the shit out of a high pass filter going across them and then delaying the shit out of it in certain steps. And then all of a sudden it sounds like the 1980s outer space noise from the Transformers cartoon.
Yeah, I feel like with the Rhythm, they tried their best to make it so you couldn't fuck with the oscillators to not sound like a drum. But Andrew found a way. And,
but yeah,
I did my Roland R8.
Yeah, right.
I was constantly detuning sounds or playing 96 rolls so it didn't sound like a drum machine.
Wait, you were R8 user?
Yeah.
I knew there was a reason why I loved you. I still have my R8. I wanted the MK2 and I can never get it, but I have all the cards for mine. I have.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of cards and I have the original R8. I've got Power Drums USA, Ethnic drums, and I can't remember what else.
Yeah, I remember I bought Dance and Electronic years later on eBay, like not back in the day because...
All right. They were incredibly expensive.
Yeah, at the time I was a big Audiker person, and so I knew that they used it, and so I was like, oh, I know I'm going to be able to sound like Audiker, and that didn't happen. But I still love the drum machine. I would argue that today... I know we're probably running out of time. It's probably one of my favorite drum machines. Even now.
I hate it, but I'll grant that it has a lot of functionality that other drum machines don't have. I would have been much better off with a Dr. 660.
Yeah.
But honestly, but it does things in a backwards way that is sometimes incredibly useful.
Yeah, for me, having history as a percussionist, the sort of flam settings and some of the human feel stuff really appealed to me, and I was able to like get that to work the way I wanted.
Nice.
Like what was unique to me is that instead of assigning sounds to a MIDI note, you assigned a MIDI note to sounds, so you could have a MIDI note like your G sharp, and then you could trigger 16 sounds with just that note.
Yeah.
So other drum machines don't do it that way. They do it the opposite way, so you can't do that. And that's kind of really neat. Also had a really large pitch bend range, so you could really make like weird metal slide sounds with your hi-hats. So I mean, yeah, it was unique. But it wasn't good for industrial, so I hated it because the sounds were too realistic, which is the exact opposite of what I wanted.
Yeah. I understood.
I think that also one of the great things about the Digitact is you get this nice sequencer and stuff like that, but it also gives you, unlike a lot of the other gear that outside of like the Octatrack, is it gives you an 8 MIDI channel sequencer, 8 channel MIDI sequencer.
Isn't it 6? Maybe it's 8. I don't know.
No, but I'm looking right now. 9 through 16. That's 8.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you get 8.
Yes,
And
right.
that's fantastic. So I mean, if you're buying this thing for like $700, you get a sampler, you get a drum machine, you get a groove box. It's got great effects on it. You can run audio into it. You can plug it into your computer and use it as an audio interface with those on there. And you also can use it. You can use it to set up as you learn and grow. You can use it as a sequencer for all the rest of your gear. It's a fantastic little box. It's definitely, I think, Electron's Swiss Army knife as far as that kind of thing is concerned. And I think they did a great job with it.
And it actually comes with good sounds. Like the out of the box drum sounds are actually pretty badass, which is.
Is it perfect? No, but it's still it's a killer little guy. It doesn't have song mode, and I know people like song mode a lot of times, but it's a great little machine. It's a lot of fun to play. I mean, you can't do a lot of things you can do with the Deluge. Like, you can't turn the tempo up to like 5,000 BPM or whatever it is. Have you ever done that, Jeff?
You can't use the ocean as an
You can't use the ocean as an
Yes.
Yeah. The great thing about the Deluge is that you can get it to be stupid with the tempo. Stupid high and stupid. I think you can get it down to like 0.01 BPM.
Nice.
And then up to like 5,000 BPM.
So 5,000 is making what?
Yeah,
white
pretty
noise?
much. Hey, let me. I just happen to have a Deluge right here.
Oh, do you have a
Excuse me while I whip it out.
I whip out my Deluge here. Let me just unplug it because it's battery powered.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
The demonetization and banning
I know, right?
is really like.
I
on
know.
point
It's so
today.
sad that we're not actually getting banned for anything.
Yeah, even the censor bots aren't
I know.
watching.
They don't care. All right, so
Is that the built-in speaker?
yeah, this is the emergency use only built-in speaker. Let me change my focus here, see if I can get it on the device and not me. I'll just bring it back. There we go. And then after a while, it just says fast.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
And you can see it's just losing its mind.
It went way past 5,000.
It did.
Too.
It's actually 10,000. It's like the last number I see is 9,728.
Christoph, I love that you're able to calculate that. I don't know if you were watching it or whether you just did that in spring.
I was watching it.
I was like, there's something wrong with you, man.
There's a lot wrong with me, but that wasn't one of them.
And now we're bringing it down to, I'm sorry, 0.0001. Oh, there we go. 0.001 tempo. I would say this is like a John Cage piece.
Yeah.
Come back in 5 years for the next note.
It sounds the same. It sounds the same at a gajillion BPM or a gajillion.
Yeah, exactly, right?
BPM.
What I think you should do is sample both the 10,000 BPM and the 1 BPM
And see, and just let him.
put it together, man. Do something.
I'm gonna put that on my list of things to do. Done.
Then make a 5,000 BPM song. Right
Totally.
In the middle.
Oh my gosh.
Or just like a 5,000 BPM song, but you're only hitting the beat like once every 5 minutes. But then you crank up to 5,000 BPM and you're just using the reverb or the delay. Anyway, last piece of news: the Modal Cobalt 8 firmware 1.1. This gave it 6 new FM/AM oscillator algorithms and more. So I've shit talked this thing at KnobCon because it was a wrong color. They fixed that, and now this thing is pretty slick. And for the price, the thing is like, I think it starts at like $599 for the desktop version.
Yeah, it's very important.
It's very affordable. It's kind of a weird setup for a virtual analog because it doesn't get like, it gives you your waveforms, but it doesn't give you too much tweakability on them.
Yeah, I felt like it's like a VA but built like a waveform.
Yeah, it gives you like it's a 2-knob algorithm, they say.
Uh-huh.
But every time they put out an update on there, I'm a little bit more curious about how this thing works and stuff like that. So I don't know.
You remember? I think in KnobCon the last time we were there was that sort of battle between the Hydrasynth and the Argon 8.
Yeah,
was that the one?
The Cobalt 8.
Cobalt. Yeah, and it was this whole like, hey, like which one sounds better, and it really divided people's like a Pepsi Coca-Cola situation.
Yeah, I remember that.
I personally do think that this Moto stuff sounds colder and crispier, and if you're into that, then it's beautiful. Whereas Hydrasynth, I think, is far more organic. Yeah. I don't know about the Cobalt 8. I've only listened to one demo of it, so I don't know.
Yeah, but I like it's intriguing to me because they're adding stuff to it, and I kind of like the interface now, even though I didn't like it before, but it's growing on me now. Growing.
Yeah. Their marketing is cool. I mean, they showed the iPad app, which looks real cool. All of their stuff looks real slick. I'm glad because they did that crazy thing when they made all this super expensive synths that no one could afford, and I thought they were going to disappear. And so this is a pretty cool adventure for them.
Absolutely.
Well, with this, they like we were just talking about how when you have a 4-op FM, you need to have the extra waveforms, and here they have the extra waveforms. So your FM operators aren't just stuck with sines. You've got a FM saw, square, FM square, triangle, FM's triangle, square. So the 2 knobs will give you basically the most interesting FM sounds that you really want to dial in if you're not trying to make realistic sounds. So it's probably fantastic. I don't have one, so I don't know, but it's probably very well implemented.
Yeah, from what I don't have one either. But a lot of the reviews I've been seeing of it are they speak very highly of this pieces of the synth. Modal's known for making good stuff anyway, so although a bit overpriced. So this is nice to see something at a lower price range.
Man, that 001 of theirs that uses that numeric oscillator stuff.
Shit.
Go back and listen to that stuff.
It sounds
so badass.
Weird.
Yeah, it's just not anything a human could afford, and no one's going to repair it now, so don't buy one. But I mean, they don't sell them anymore. But
so that's the news for the past 2 weeks. After we closed our news session, I did see that Spectrasonics released a software update for all their stuff to make them compatible with the M1 chip on the Macs. Spectrasonics makes fantastic plugins. Omnisphere, which is one of my favorite plugins ever. RMX is one of the other ones they do. So check those out. If you are a Spectrasonics user, update your firmware or update your software and enjoy that. They're also making it a little bit easier to run on mid-level computers, especially with the M1 chips.
Do you want the Arturia stuff to roll over to next?
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about the Arturia stuff, but we should probably.
Yeah, there's way too
Yeah.
much to talk about, so we should push it
Yeah,
out.
because I know you wanted to talk about that with what you're working on. So
Yeah.
do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to roll it into the next show?
No, we
Okay.
can let it roll. It's still
All
in
right, tune in
process.
next time when we talk about the Arturia FX plugins and more. Actually, I think I accidentally skipped over that completely. I think I forgot to put it on the news things. My God, I'm a terrible person. Shoot me with your spank ray.
No, dude, I think it's on there because I go through that list and I open up all the tabs right before the show. So it's buried in there. It's got a weird name. I like the headline.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
here.
Oh yeah, there it is. I'm sorry. Yep. Well, we'll come back and talk about that, and I expect a full review, Justin, with examples.
Yeah, you have to somehow pull this together between the two setups.
Right.
So next time we'll talk about Arturia. We'll talk about something new from Cherry Audio,
Probably.
And Behringer.
Yeah.
And Behringer will probably do something awful or something we're all excited about, but we feel bad about because it's them.
We feel guilty for liking it.
Yep.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, bots, for hanging out with us tonight. And J. Rudd, Ohio, a human being, actually came on tonight. So thanks for joining us there, J. Rudd. Probably came over here from Bo Beats' Discord. Thanks for pimping that, Jeff. So yeah, Christoph, Jeff, Justin, thank you all for hanging out. And we'll see everybody in 2 weeks where we'll discuss Arturia and whatever Cherry Audio comes out with between now and then. We'll bitch about Behringer. I'm sure I'll talk about how much I hate Roland, and I'll probably do more stupid deluge tricks. Jeff and
I'll name drop Kurzweil.
right, there we go.
Yeah.
And Jeff, enjoy the rest of your vacation.
Thank you.
Yeah, that place looks pretty rad,
Yeah.
man. Have fun.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great night. See you next time on Tangents.
See you soon.